What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 112, Moroccan Mambo. And we're going to go over a little bit of what was going on with the Moroccan invasion of Spanish autonomous area. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Excuse me. But yeah, plenty of things to discuss, including that whole situation. There appears to be more to it than I think people realize. I think people are going to break it down to the most simplistic way possible when it comes to the left-right situation regarding that whole thing, but there might be more to it. But yeah, we'll be talking about that. But if this is your first time here, this is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we watch the crazy things that are happening around the world right now. We do our best to gather the information without bias, without narrative, dive deep into things and try and figure out what's going on, the best do the job that God has given us to be, which is watchmen in these times right now, to go out there and sound the alarm, share the warning of what's going on, and get the gospel to as many people as we can. So if you're new, welcome in. Glad to have you here. We do things a little bit different around here. I'm sure you'll figure that out sooner rather than later, but hopefully you stick around. For the veterans, well, juice boxes in the back, do what you gotta do. So plenty of things to talk about. Moroccan Mambo. So yeah, we're gonna go over that whole thing of they claim it's 60,000. It's a lot, we know that. Is it 60,000? Who knows? But they claim that there were 60,000 Moroccan, they were all young dudes, according to the videos that I saw, breaching over into the Spanish area of Melilla and Ceuta. Trying to pronounce those things. But yeah, so we'll talk about that. I think there's more depth to it. Possibly the United States and Israel tied to it for certain reasons. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. We'll also be talking about some stuff when it comes to the U.S. Gas tanker that was struck over in Egypt. Nobody's taking responsibility for that, which is interesting. We also got Saudi Arabia and 13 other countries establish a Middle East Maritime Defense Coalition. Whenever these things happen, it's usually just a public relations thing, but we'll talk about it anyways. We also got U.S. is withdrawing forces and equipment from Iraq. We'll talk about that. We also got some updates regarding Taylor Farms, the whole lettuce situation that's going on. We'll be talking about that, which they asked the White House to delay the recall, as well as they're notorious for being donators to the MAGA groups. So we'll talk about that as well. Why does this page keep doing that? We also got an update. If you guys remember, it's kind of old news now, but the reflecting pool situation, by the way, it still hasn't been repaired and still hasn't been filled up. There's still fences around it. But if you guys remember, there was an Olympian dude, ex-Olympian dude, who was arrested and charged with federal destruction of property. Well, those charges have been dropped because it came out that it was a botched reflecting pool job. So Trump lied again. Imagine that. We also got Trump is demanding another $10 million from Congress to cover the costs of his failed Freedom 250 events. Then we got Mamdani, who officially announced those socialist grocery stores. We heard the rumors and he officially announced it. But he's also getting sued by an immigrant-led business group for these things. Wow. Theatrics all over the place on that one. We also got the Trump's Commerce Department announces 7 new equity stakes in private corporations, taking his fascist corporatism up to 30 as of now. Yes, that's fascism, everybody. We got socialism going on in New York City. We got fascism happening at the United States government, but yet everybody's running around with like chickens with their head cut off, screaming communism. The narrative and the brainwashing is working quite well, people. We also got, it's crazy. An Ecuador prosecutor who is tasked with investigating the U.S. bombings of those supposed drug boats coming from Venezuela and Colombia and Ecuador and everything like that. She was assassinated, broad daylight, on the street in the middle of the day. Interesting. Just another one of those chin scratchers. We'll talk about that. We also got a report coming out that the price as well as the amount of cocaine coming into the United States has not stopped or dropped in any way, shape, or form. So again, as we said from the very beginning of those attacks, it was all theatrics to do an illegal kidnapping of Maduro in Venezuela. Imagine that. And then, of course, we're going to get into the details of the Morocco-Spain whole situation there. So plenty of things to discuss this evening. I hope everybody is doing well. Thank you guys for joining me today. And yeah, let's go ahead. If I can get this right. There we go. Let's go ahead and get into some housekeeping.
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid, like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. Right now, YouTube is beating the snot out of my channel. If you guys aren't aware, YouTube has a wonderful Google AI system that goes through and scans everybody's videos and live streams as they're put up. And if you're talking about certain things, they restrict your ability to get into the algorithm. And I've been watching this for the past couple weeks. The past couple weeks, as you guys know, we've been getting into some pretty interesting topics that YouTube does not like, especially when it comes to JFK assassination, Israel stuff, and this whole thing like that. And I can tell you from looking at the analytics that YouTube is destroying my channel right now, and they are unsubbing a whole bunch of people. I lost like 70 subs in 1 week. And it's all when I started talking about some of this stuff. I know that's not natural. That is clearly YouTube doing their handiwork. So please, the only way we can get out there right now on YouTube is liking, sharing, and subscribing. So please do so, especially right now. Also, follow along on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels in case I get booted off YouTube. That might be coming sooner than later. But yeah. Follow on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on Rumble. Telegram, I post updates, announcements, and other things like that. Yamara unsubbing. Yeah, do what you gotta do. Don't know what I just said to make you angry about that one. But, yeah, feel free to follow along on those platforms. The best place to stay up to date, though, of course, is the WretchedWatchmen.com website. Of course, we got our own private live streaming service. What's going on to the people over there? See, Amanda is chilling out over there. Good to see you. But yeah, you'll find the latest podcasts and live streams are over there, the announcement page, the free book to download, and all that other stuff as well. You'll find on the website. That's the best place to stay up to date. And last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below: CashApp, Venmo, and Give, Send, Go. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So yeah, if you guys would like to support this channel and everything. Again, this channel is not monetized. Even if I wanted to monetize this channel, YouTube would probably wreck that. But we're not monetized. We don't do paywalls. We don't do subscriptions. Everything that we do is entirely free, and we're able to do it this often and always free because of your guys' donations. So again, those donation links are below: CashApp, Venmo, Give, Send, Go. Again, you guys make this all happen, and so thank you for those who keep this running and for those who pray and all that jazz. So appreciate that. All right. So that's our wonderful housekeeping. Sheila Brown, usually not here during the live streams. Well, welcome in, Sheila. Glad to have you here in the live stream. Very cool. Very, very cool. All right. It is Saturday, so let's go ahead and get into the Wretched Weather Report.
Everybody got their fancy hats? Let's go!
All right, so the Wretched Weather Report, what we do is we keep track of the trends of what's going on when it comes to weather-related natural event type deals around the world. Again, I'm not a geologist or anything like that, so we don't go over every single thing, but it is worth keeping an eye on because we know the natural events are going to be a part of the birth pains that are going to increase in size and frequency as we get into the day of the Lord. And so it's worth keeping tabs on, worth keeping track on. And it's also one of those things that allows us to pray for those around the world who are dealing with tragedy and events like that from the natural stuff, whether storms or earthquakes or anything like that. People are affected, but we know prayer does work, and the Lord works through traumatic events. He does. He's awesome at that stuff. So, but yeah, it gives us that opportunity. Yeah, not as eventful of a wretched weather report. I can't even think of my own title. As we had the past couple Saturdays. As you guys know, it's been pretty crazy the past couple Saturdays. But yeah, no, this past week, not too bad. We have a lot of earthquakes again. We had about a month of a lot of earthquakes, some large scale earthquakes. And then last week was a little bit low, but now we're back up to a lot of them again this past week. And so earthquakes 5.5 magnitude and up. We got a 5.8 in Attica, Alaska. We got a 5.7 and a 5.8 in Qinghai, China. A 5.8 in Kamchatka, Russia. A 5.9 in Chiapas, Mexico. Chiapas, keep an eye on them. We know that that's where a major 7-something earthquake, 7.3, I think, something like that, earthquake struck just a couple weeks ago, and they've really been rattling a lot after that. They usually don't get that many, especially at this size, and after that huge one, it's really been shaking, and that's a part of the whole thing we've been watching with the whole energy buildup happening underneath North America's feet right now. So keep an eye on Chiapas, Mexico. Then the big one of the week was a 6.8 in Uto, Japan. That did a lot of damage. I think the last count I saw was 13 people died from that. There was a whole bunch of people trapped in the mall over there because of this. But yeah, it's a lot of damage in Japan from that, and it was felt all over the place. So prayers for those in Japan, those who lost loved ones, those who lost their entire lives, households, businesses, everything like that. Be praying for those in Japan. There's several aftershocks, no tsunami after that, thankfully. Praise the Lord. But several aftershocks, including the biggest one I saw was a 5.6 in Shishiki, Japan. So yeah, be praying for those in Japan dealing with that. Then there's a 5.6 in the Pacific Antarctic Ridge. Let's see. Yeah, it's 5.9 and a 5.8 in the Kermadec Islands. That's New Zealand area over there. 5.9 in Colonia, Micronesia. A 5.6 in San Fernando, Peru. 5.5 in Sarugumori, Japan. And then a 5.6 in Port Alice, Canada. A little bit going on in Canada too. Again, I think that has to do with that energy buildup underneath the North American side over there. With we talked about it. Was it last week or the week? I think it was last Saturday. We talked about it. There's a lot of interesting movement happening under North America right now, with some earthquakes hitting in very strategic locations. So makes you wonder if God is setting things up. So one can hope, because if that's going to go, that's probably going to be when we're out of here too. So that's how I view it. As far as volcanoes, this past week, no changes. We have 48 active eruptions around the world, sitting at the top of the global average on that one. So no changes there on the volcanoes. So that, excuse me, that's what we got for our wretched weather reports this week. Again, we get the usual major tornadoes happening in the Middle East. Those are still happening. We got the wildfires happening on the East Coast, up in Canada, the France fires over there as well. So yeah, be praying for those dealing with those issues as well. So, all right. Oh, geez. Okay. Anyways, all right. Oh man, it's the stuff today, man. The news and the events is just ridiculous. Giant clown show going on out there. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this. We got a lot to cover and not enough time to cover it all. I'll tell you what, guys, all this news and stuff is stacking up. I'm trying to get it out as fast as possible. So hang with me. All right, so we got this. Let's start off with this. This is kind of an escalation, even though nobody's really claiming to do it. Egypt confirms drone caused fire on 2 gas vessels at Damietta. Let's see here. It goes down to a drone caused the fire that engulfed 2 gas vessels at Egypt's Mediterranean port in Damietta, and the Egyptian cabinet said on Thursday, confirming for the first time that the blaze, which erupted a day earlier, was the result of an attack rather than an accident. No party has claimed responsibility. This could, again, we don't necessarily know. Could be a case of Iran did it, but usually they like to take credit with that, or it could be a case of some rebels starting some stuff. Could be a case of they were trying to do a false flag, didn't go anywhere, or that false flag's leading to something else because they Trump said that they were going to start bombing harder than ever over in Iran this weekend. But again, who really knows? So pretty interesting. It says British maritime security firm Amber said Wednesday that the drone had hit a U.S.-owned gas storage tank at the port. But this is significant because it's not only a U.S. Tanker, but it's also in Egypt. So those are 2 factors that have not played much of anything so far on this Iran situation. U.S. tanker and Egyptian port. So pretty interesting. 3 trading sources familiar with the incident said that the drone hit floating storage tankers Energios Winter, causing a fire that spread to another vessel, Gazlog Salem. And goes on to say it was unclear who was responsible for the incident, which occurred shortly after Iran carried out a missile attack against U.S. forces in Jordan, and Washington and Saudi Arabia struck Iran-backed paramilitary groups in Iraq. So this could be a case of they either are or they were attempting to maybe escalate things over there. Lot of moving pieces happening right now. We know the Ukraine-Russia thing is worming its way over into combining with this. There's been a lot of stuff recently that is looking to combine those 2 things. Plus, we have the whole Spanish situation happening with the Morocco stuff, which, again, we'll get to. There might be something at play with that involves the United States and Israel, as I said before. So we'll go over that when it goes there, but this could be a case of they might be trying to escalate and expand things when it comes to this very clearly orchestrated war, quote unquote, that's going on. Now, that led to this. Saudi Arabia and 13 other countries established Middle East Maritime Defense Coalition. And so this is on the heels of not only that hit over there, but also the shutdown of the Red Sea and the Saudi Arabian tankers that were hit by the Houthis over in Yemen. And so Saudi Arabia is coming out saying that they're going to, they established a 13 or 14 country, including Saudi Arabia, Maritime Defense Coalition. Now, most of the time, before we even get into this, most of the time, whenever you see stuff like this, where they do some type of pact or coalition and they add all these people, it's really just for public relational fare. Not much usually comes from these things. In some cases, it obviously does. But for the most part, it's usually just a talking, a thing to put out in the news, a public relations things to keep things spinning. So this is a thing where I'm just letting you guys know because it is a thing that happened, but it definitely could be something that's just there to keep the media spinning on what's going on with the war situation and keep a spotlight on things. That's how they do it. Again, this is something that the intelligence agencies have been doing for decades upon decades upon decades. You establish these fake coalitions or you leak things out to the news in some place that gets picked up by another organization, gets picked up by another organization. All of a sudden, it's broad scale news. Everybody's looking at it. Everybody believes that's the direction that they want the intelligence groups for people to think. And it fuels everything. So again, this could be real or it could be a PR stunt. So Saudi Arabia and 13 other countries established a maritime defense coalition on Thursday aimed at protecting shipping in the key waterways of the Middle East. The multinational maritime defense coalition aims to tackle the growing challenges facing global maritime security, the alliance said in a joint statement. The alliance will serve as a framework for the maritime defense cooperation aimed at enhancing maritime security, protecting freedom of navigation, securing international trade routes and energy supply lines, and safeguarding shared maritime interest in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. So again, that whole Red Sea situation, this is an escalation of the Houthis striking the Saudi tankers over there. It says the founding members of the coalition inside Saudi Arabia the founding members of the coalition include Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Yemen, interesting, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Sudan, Djibouti, and Somalia. So that's what we got going on with that. Some interesting names not attached. A couple that I'm not surprised would be Iraq, which is, again, not necessarily surprised that they're not attached to that. One that I am a little surprised that they're not attached to this because of their connection is Libya. And Libya obviously plays an important part when it comes to the Ezekiel 38 situation. But again, that involves Iran and Russia and that whole thing as well. So, but yeah, I just noticed that Iraq and Libya are not connected to that, which is pretty fascinating. Not so much for Iraq. Little surprised that Libya is not involved, especially since Libya is so highly connected to Turkey, and Turkey is a part of this pact as well. It says the chiefs of staff and the representatives from 43 countries, in addition to the European Union's delegation to the kingdom, participated in the meeting. So not only did these 13 countries in Saudi Arabia sign on to this coalition, but 43 countries total were involved with the meeting itself. And it says over 50 countries and organizations were invited, and participation was in person or via video link. We don't necessarily know who those other countries are, but we know that they were involved with it. So again, this is one of those things. Just file it in the back of your mind, and if we see something else come from this, it might be worth paying attention to. Otherwise, in my opinion, this just kind of appears to be more of a PR stunt. But again, I could be wrong, and we'll see if anything actually comes from it. So either way, worth knowing about it. Sticking in the Middle East, we also got to keep an eye on this as well. U.S. nears full withdrawal from Iraq as bases in Kurdistan region face attacks from Iran and proxies. The Patriot air defense systems that detect and shoot down incoming missiles and drones have already been removed. So that's mainly the big information regarding this, has to do with the Patriot air systems, because as we know, the United States has been taking their air systems, their air defense Patriot missiles, from all other stationed regions all around the world and taking them out. They took it from South Korea. There's been talks to take them from Japan. Hasn't happened yet, but there's been talks that they were going to do that. They're taking them out of Iraq. There was another region. I can't remember where they took it out. Maybe somebody knows in the chat. But yeah, they're taking them and moving them out. Now, this is on the heels of the reports that we've been hearing for months now, that the stockpiles are getting low when it comes to these things. As we know, it's basically a $4,000 Iranian missile versus a $4 million Patriot defense thing. So the counter budget doesn't make much sense when it comes to it. And we're apparently running low on these things. There's a U.S. naval guy. He's one of the leader guys. He came out and said, we don't have enough stuff to protect Israel. The United States needs to make up their mind if we're going to stay here or go back home. I personally, the reason why I'm not reporting on that is because I think that is full on propaganda made up in order to push an agenda. Because there's no way a head naval dude would come out and say something like that for the public. That just reeks of propaganda. But they're moving this stuff out. We know that they're moving from some bases, but yet we know that they're not going to fully leave Iraq. That never happens. We got people all over the world in places that they won't admit that they are. But yes, as the United States military started to draw down its last remaining forces from Iraq stationed in the vicinity of Erbil's airport in the Iraqi Kurdistan region, Patriot mobile air-to-surface air defense systems that detect and shoot down incoming missiles, drones, and other airborne enemy equipment have already been removed from the military compound. The pullout started last week and is ongoing, with the bulk of the U.S. forces and their heavy equipment out. All, quote unquote, all of the Patriot anti-missile batteries have been redeployed to an undisclosed destination, adding that other defensive weapon systems remained in place as part of the publication, or as part of the time of this publication. Regional officials described the pullout as routine and in line with U.S. commitment to withdraw all of its forces from Iraq by September 30th deadline that was agreed with Baghdad. It says the bulk of Iranian and militia attacks have targeted armed Iranian Kurdish opposition groups based in the Kurdistan region. However, the Erbil compound has also been targeted multiple times. I've talked about this before. There is no group that's been used more by so many different groups. I mean, they are the biggest pawns over in the Middle East, and that's the Kurds. They're all mixed up in themselves. They use themselves against themselves. It's crazy, but other countries have been involved with utilizing the Kurds. They're so gullible and get involved with this stuff. But for the most part, nobody in the region actually likes them. Pakistan has messed with them. Iraq has messed with them. Iran has messed with them. Russia has messed with them. Syria has messed with them. Turkey has messed with them. Israel's messed with them. And they're just the people that is just very confused without a home. And so they've basically been hiding under the cover of the U.S. Base and their defense systems there. And now, since they're getting pulled out, the Kurds are kind of stuck there. The ones that aren't actively attacking the United States, though. See, that's the thing. It's all mixed up over there. It goes on to say the U.S. pullout will not necessarily spell an end to the U.S.-Iraqi military cooperation. It won't. The U.S. Special Forces deployed at discrete low-profile locations. Yeah, again, just because they say they pull out does not mean that they pull out. They're everywhere. So, all right. A lot of stuff going on still in the Middle East. I know this isn't like the big stuff of, that's mostly getting talked about in the mainstream, but those are little things that I think are popping up here and there. Again, that's not being covered on the big stage, the big spotlight of things. That's definitely worth keeping in mind. Those little moves like that definitely usually add up or relate to something else that happens over there. And I see the chat is heavily involved with the food conversation. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. All right. So, speaking of food, I guess that was a good segue. And I didn't plan that. I don't think you guys planned it either. But let's talk about some food stuff, especially when it comes to the Taylor Farms and lettuce. Let us talk about lettuce, shall we? I'm going to give myself a rim shot for that one. Dad jokes for the win. All right. So, not standard for Taylor Farms to ask White House to delay cyclospora recall. Yeah. So, basically, Taylor Farms, they knew that there was a problem, basically called up the White House and said, hey, can you guys give us an opportunity? Can you delay this announcement regarding this? And from what we understand, they did not delay on it, which is interesting because Taylor Farms is notorious for donating a ton of money to those who run the Trump administration right now. So, fascinating. So it says Taylor Farms contacted the White House seeking to delay a recall announcement while federal investigators were preparing to publicly link the company to the multi-state outbreak. According to the Journal, representatives for Taylor Farms contacted the White House requesting more time for the government before the government publicly linked the company to the outbreak. The report said that the White House asked FDA officials to join the call, during which Taylor Farms argued that federal investigators lacked positive laboratory evidence connecting its products to the outbreak and expressed concerns that the government was overstating the company's responsibility. This is just your basic corporate talk saying, we know we messed up, we're going to lie about it and say they're saying stuff that they haven't even looked into yet and everything. And it's all but confirmed that anything from the Taylor Farms lettuce, and there's been some stuff for other herbs coming out of there, has been one of the main proponents to this issue. It says the recall associated with the cyclospora outbreak has been fraught with confusing messaging. The iceberg lettuce was initially linked to a single supplier, Taylor Farms Mexico, which issued a voluntary recall. However, the FDA issued an update last week. Lettuce that was not part of the recall had tested positive for cyclospora, but a day later, the FDA deleted that line and said that the test was a false positive. The recall still existed, the FDA insisted, despite an enigmatic statement, there we go, from the supplier. So basically, they ran a test, it came back with a false positive, and so they had the FDA had to edit things because we've got some wonderful geniuses running the government, because if you work in government, then, well, fill in the blank. But yeah, so basically Taylor Farms not only went to the FDA and said, or called up the White House and said, please wait. Usually how it goes is they would go directly to the FDA themselves and communicate that way, but they decided to go to the White House. Why did they do that? Well, because Taylor Farms spent big on MAGA and anti-regulatory lobbying before the cyclospora outbreak. The company donated more than $3.6 million to conservative groups between 2020 and 2025, including $1 million to the MAGA Inc. Super PAC. They thought that they could just call up the White House and go, we've given you guys a lot of money. You want to help us out on this? And something tells me that Trump probably said, well, the price is this much now. They probably didn't give enough because, as we know, Trump is easily bought when it comes to buying pardons and rule regulatory changes and that whole thing. So they probably didn't give enough. It says the lettuce supplier at the center of the cyclospora outbreak has spent millions of dollars to sway sentiment around food regulation and elect Trump and other MAGA Republicans. Taylor Farms donated more than $2 million to conservative political groups in 2025, according to Federal Election Commission filings. That includes a $1 million donation to MAGA Inc., the Trump-centric Super PAC, and $1.1 million to other Super PACs dedicated to electing Republicans. From 2020 through the end of 2024, the company donated more than $1.6 million to conservative PACs, including a total of $850,000 to AFP Action, an anti-regulation super PAC with ties to the Koch network. Bruce Taylor, the chairman and CEO of Taylor Farms, is also a longtime donor to Republican causes. Since 2020, Taylor has personally donated more than $900,000 to Republican PACs and candidates, including contributions to Texas Senator John Cornyn and Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, who Marsha Blackburn, of course, is leading the charge when it comes to online censorship here in the United States. Like many corporate giants, Taylor Farms has also spent big on lobbying related to industry regulation. In early 2025, it hired lobbyists from the firm Sidley Austin to advocate on behalf of the company on regulation of food safety. According to disclosure documents, since then, the company has spent $810,000 on its lobbying efforts. And again, that's one of the things that I always say, politicians would be so much more transparent if they wore patches on their suits like the NASCAR drivers do. You know how the NASCAR drivers, their suits are covered in sponsor patches. I think we need to institute something when it comes to government where politicians have to wear lobbyist patches so we know who's paying who in order to change everything illegally, unconstitutionally, and as corrupt as possible. Says Taylor Farms has apparently taken issue with the CDC's and FDA's handling of the investigation into the current cyclospora outbreak, which has sickened thousands of people across multiple states. The company recently claimed that the FDA, quote unquote, apologized after announcing a false positive test of a sample of Taylor Farms lettuce. The FDA told reporters that no, actually, an official apology never happened. So again, Taylor Farms came out and lied about that too. Everybody just lies, man. Prior to the false positive and the non-apology, Taylor Farms executives met with the White House and FDA officials. The New York Times reported that the meeting followed Taylor Farms' recent hire of Trent Morse, the former deputy director of the White House Presidential Personnel Office, who left the Trump administration to start a government relations firm in September. So the Taylor Farms hired Trent Morse, who was a part of the Trump administration. So they have an in, but it didn't quite work on this one, I guess. And now, again, they've got a string of problems, Taylor Farms does. In 2013, the FDA named Taylor Farms as a source of a cyclospora outbreak that sickened hundreds. So that was back in 2013. In 2015, Taylor Farms voluntarily recalled multiple products containing celery because they had been contaminated with E. coli. And in 2024, the company recalled certain yellow onions as part of an E. coli outbreak linked to McDonald's Quarter Pounders. Following that outbreak, CBS News reported that FDA inspectors found dozens of violations at the Colorado Taylor Farms facility linked to the Quarter Pounder outbreak, including minimal hand washing and dirty equipment. And Taylor Farms lettuce is everywhere. Since 2025, the FDA has inspected 18 American plants affiliated with Taylor Farms. 3 resulted in voluntary action indicated, which means that while violations were found, they weren't severe enough to warrant mandatory enforcement. course, we don't have any details on the severity of those. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration decided at least 21 violations in Taylor Farms facilities across the United States since the start of 2025. 21 violations since 2025. In one particular gruesome case, the Department of Labor fined a New Jersey facility $1.1 million due to violations. The May 2025 inspection came after an employee died after sustaining injuries cleaning an industrial blancher at the facility. No wonder they're spending money to get in on imagine. And this is how I always like to put it. Now, I don't have any proof of it, but this is how I like how I would put it. These are the problems that they face when they're giving millions of dollars to the politicians that oversee all of this. What would the violations be if they weren't giving money to the politicians? Something tells me Taylor Farms would probably be shut down as a whole if they weren't paying for the coverage that they're currently receiving by the government, U.S. government. Again, I don't have anything that proves that, but it just makes you wonder. Just makes you wonder. Anyways. All right. Turning a blind eye. Yep. All right, let's move over to the reflecting pool. Shall we? And it's another case of Trump lied. Again.
You are terrible.
Just another case of Trump lying. Rush and botched. Olympian accused of vandalizing reflecting pool won't face charges after prosecutors admit the construction flaws. Now, it's so fascinating because Trump was lying about it. Carolyn Levitt was lying about it. There was, I received several people sending me links to a quote-unquote independent reporter, which in no way, shape, or form is that woman independent. I can't remember her name right now, but she's notorious for being very pro-Trump, who got access to the reflecting pool after it was drained. That should tell you that she has an in on it. And I got multiple people sending me, see, this is the truth of the matter. The left-wing people went in and vandalized the pool. However, hidden for many weeks now was the fact that they admitted on the Department of Interior admitted that they botched the reflecting pool job, and people pulling on the paint job underneath that was already falling apart had nothing to do with the damage to the reflecting pool. So again, you fell for the narrative. Congratulations. Could it have anything to do with it was Trump paid his own pool guy who has no experience in dealing with reflecting pools or anything like this to go out there and not only paint it a color which is very damaging and increases the heat, which will cause the bubblage, but he also drove his motorcade over it before the paint was even settled. The former Olympian who was accused of vandalizing the Lincoln reflecting pool will no longer face charges after federal prosecutors said that there's information suggesting that the damage was caused by construction and installation failures. The filing from the Office of the U.S. Attorney General for D.C. indicates that the peeling paint was the fault of the company contracted to do the work, Atlantic Industrial Coatings, in its rush to complete the project. Again, that was Trump's personal choice because he's friends and business partners with the guy of Atlantic Industrial Coatings. But again, his friend didn't cause the damage. You caused the damage. Prosecutors wrote that the information that they received strongly suggests that a rushed and botched installation by AIC, the primary contractor, led to the damage of the lining of the reflecting pool and the fact that Trump drove his motorcade on it before it was actually set and dry. Had the Department of Interior been forthcoming with the information, they hid it. Clearly, it is in their possession. The government would not have sought a grand jury indictment, wrote prosecutors in a notice of nolle prosequi document. The attorney said that they repeatedly reached out to the Department of Interior dozens and dozens of times, and eventually they got a slow trickling of the information. Along with Hearn, Justice Canero's case accusing him of vandalizing the reflecting pool was dropped, but yet 2 others accused of damaging the pool, Cameron Thayers and Sophie Dennison Gibby, are still being prosecuted, which that doesn't make any sense. Prosecutors wrote that the damage would be seen throughout the reflecting pool, even in the middle where the vandals would not likely try to peel the lining. Hearn was accused of causing more than $1,000 worth of damage to the reflecting pool, which again, all he did was tug on a piece of the paint that was already up off of the pool, and they hit him with $1,000 federal crime. Removing the liner at the perimeter would have no negative impact on the economic value of the liner, said an engineer's report about the pool in the legal documents. Hearn was accused of violently ripping part of the liner. Of course, they have to alter and lie again from the side of the reflecting pool, according to U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro. Again, it all has to do with the left-right paradigm, because it's a case of, well, it's the leftists who went in and damaged Trump's pool because they hate the right, they hate MAGA, they hate this country. And again, that's where you get the fuel for the fire in order to push this stuff through. Exactly what the reporters and the podcasters and the journalists and stuff did. I mean, you had the right-wing people like Benny Johnson and Tim Pool, and which Tim Pool, of course, we know was paid by the Russian Kremlin with tenant media and everything like that. Yeah, in case you guys don't know, Tim Pool is a Russian propagandist. Have fun with that one. And all these guys, Benny Johnson too, imagine that. All these guys were putting it out there saying it was the left. It's the crazy wokes that are going there and damaging Trump's pool because they hate Trump so much and da-da-da-da-da. And the Department of Interior, of course, is hiding the information that they actually fumbled, failed, and botched the job in general, allowing Trump to go out there and lie and fuel the fire. And for false journalist reporters like that one woman, I can't remember her name, who I had several videos sent to by certain people. And again, y'all have been proven wrong again. Because you're believing the narrative. You're believing the narrative. You're not going with just thinking. You're not going with just logic. How on earth are they able to go in there? First of all, Trump already said when they were doing the job that it would be impossible. His words, not mine. I've played the video. Impossible for somebody to go in there with a knife and cut it. Then a few months later, when the job was botched and starting to fail, he said that somebody went in with a knife and cut it. Why are you believing these people? Why are you pushing the narrative? Why won't you turn your brain on and use logic to think for yourself? Why don't you want to think for yourself? It says the Department of Interior officials gave prosecutors documents that showed the damage to the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool was a result of flawed installation by the contractor, Atlantic Industrial Coatings, the court filing read. The following are some of the issues that the Atlantic Industrial Coatings had during the installation, according to the documents. It says delayed installation due to heavy rainfall, numerous expansion joints that allow for underlying concrete slabs that make the floor of the pool to expand and contract as they heat and cool during the day, which needs different applications to seal. And that's part of the problem is Trump specifically chose American flag blue, which actually traps heat, which causes it to bubble because it's too hot. And then for them to clean the algae problem, they're going in and dumping this stuff in there that rips up paint because that's what cleans it. That's what gets rid of the algae. They never got rid of the algae, and the stuff that they were dumping in there kept causing more problems and peeling the paint itself. It goes on to say behind schedule. That was one of the other issues. A sense of urgency in rushing, sealant failure on an expansion joint, repeated failures of testing on the sealing of the expansion joints, delayed in obtaining sealing product, blisters, and overspray. All listed in the court filing. And it goes on to say an engineer raised the concerns of peeling paint on June 11th, 8 days before Hearn was accused of pulling the lining. Again, this is just one of those things where I don't even know what to say anymore. It's just think for yourself. Stop trying to believe and push a narrative. It's crazy. I still go around to some of these YouTube shows and podcasts and stuff out there. Some are part of the Prophecy Mafia. Some are just regular shows. And I read the comments and people literally are bending over backwards, putting themselves into a pretzel, breaking their spines, trying any which way they can to defend Trump in any capacity that they can, that there's no logical ability to make it fit. And they're doing everything that they can to defend him. And it's incredible to watch. Not in a good way. It's just insane. The insanity of people doing anything that they can to protect a man because their allegiance lies with Mango Mussolini as opposed to with the truth, which is, of course, Jesus Christ. Even though they're the first ones to tell you that I follow Jesus, I don't follow Trump. And then they go around and literally avoid the truth to defend a man who's a part of the satanic agenda. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. And if you're one of those people that sent me the video saying, see, you're lying, here's the truth, well, you just got proven wrong, take this as a lesson and move on. Move away from believing the narratives and the lies. Start thinking for yourself, and you'll be amazed at what you come across. I mean, we're believers in Christ. We should be seeking the truth first and foremost. That's what we do, is we seek the truth. Christ is the Spirit of truth. And so we should be seeking the truth, not seeking narrative, not seeking bias, not seeking anything that wraps us like a warm blanket to protect our weak fifis. No, we need to make sure that we're continuing to seek the truth no matter what. Don't fall for the lies. Speaking of money, Trump demands another $10 million from Congress to cover his disastrous Freedom 250 event costs. I showed the videos of what was going on. I reported on what was going on with that whole week-long Freedom 250 event, and it was a disaster. Nobody showed up. Half of the stuff that was promised never was there. Everybody canceled that was supposed to be there. It was an absolute disaster, and they spent millions of your money to put it on with an absolute failure that nobody got to enjoy, that was shut down by both too much heat and too much rain. And Trump is now asking for another $10 million of taxpayer money to cover the event. Donald Trump's administration is asking Congress for millions of dollars in public funds to cover costs stemming from the president's Freedom 250 events on the National Mall this summer, including a Christian-focused prayer event, which there was like 5 people there, a fireworks show that started late, and there was too many fireworks and not spaced out enough, so it was just half of the fireworks display was covered in smoke because they were trying to make something that you can't do. And a sparsely attended state fair. There was nobody there. Last week, the administration asked for an unspecified amount of funding to recoup the costs associated with the support of the event celebrating America's semi-quincentennial, according to Senator Jeff Merkley. That request prompted Merkley to ask what exactly the administration needed the money for. Follow-up notice said that the Department of Interior, hey, we just talked about them, right, is seeking $10 million to reimburse the National Park Service for costs associated with the Rededicate 250 prayer event, the Great American State Fair, and the Salute to America fireworks show on the 4th of July. It is unacceptable to ask the American people to bail out Freedom 250, Merkley wrote to Interior Secretary Doug Burnham on Wednesday. It says Congress already appropriated $150 million. Hey guys, you paid $150 million, all the Americans, you paid $150 million for a failed event that nobody went to. And now they're asking for another $10 million from you to cover other costs. Last year's One Big Beautiful Bill Act set aside $150 million for events related to the nation's 250th anniversary, though a bulk of that funding was redirected to the competing White House-led public-private Freedom 250 project. That's right. It's its own little thing that Trump took your money that was set aside for the event and funneled it over to his group. This was his event planning party. It's his own personal group, the Freedom 250 project. With private donors, billionaires, people from his team. He made money from the thing, and now he wants to take another $10 million. All he's doing is using this as an opportunity to get another $10 million in his own pocket from the taxpayers, because America First, right? No, he's stealing. He's thieving. He's taking your money, and you're sitting there handing it to him because you have some allegiance to this man. It's remarkable. If Obama or Biden did this, you'd be making a racket, but nope. because it's Trump. It's all good. Every artist pulled out of the fair's concert series except for Vanilla Ice, who his performance was canceled hours before the show was set to start. The fair suffered poor attendance, closures, and delays from extreme heat and thunderstorms, power outages, and near-empty exhibits after some states decided not to participate altogether. Yeah, they had booths set up for every state to have representatives there to be able to go and do like a presentation for people and whatnot. Half of them didn't even show up. Half of them, the states didn't even send representation. People walked in and it was just an empty booth with some chairs sitting in there. And he wants $10 million to cover all of that. It's insane. It's ridiculous. And that leads us to the other side of the theatrical spectrum, shall we? Mamdani announces 30% discount on core sets of goods at New York City-owned grocery stores. He officially announced we've been hearing rumors for a long time, but he officially announced his socialist grocery stores, and it's not going to be good. Mamdani announced Monday that the average New York family could save as much as $90 each month by shopping at city-owned grocery stores, thanks to savings that will be set for core goods that will allow for food affordability. The savings for New Yorkers will be made possible by pricing a core set of goods 30% cheaper than typical retail prices. Oh my goodness. So, again, here we have the wondrous disasters of why socialism never works, because rather than taking care of the main problem, which has to do with, jobs and and making sure that the economy is running correctly and healthily, what we're going to do is we're going to take money from those people who can barely survive through taxes, and then we're going to set up city-owned stores and lower the prices so cheap that will outprice everybody else's private stores. So the people who had their money taken from the beginning in order to set up this discount store for everybody, they're no longer going to shop at the privately owned businesses. They're going to go to the other place because they're going to try and save money on something that they've already paid for. And now all of the other private businesses are going to be hurting, and they're not going to be able to afford groceries. And so they're going to have to go start shopping at those stores, which means everybody is now having money taken from them. They can't even afford to live as it is. And now they're going to go to another store to pay money for something that they can't even afford to begin with anyways. Socialism is a system that implodes on itself. It's just how it works, because everybody gets hurt except for the government. And so that's exactly what's going on in this. So not only is this hurting the people who can't afford the groceries anyways, but now it's going to be hurting the private grocery store owners who are no longer going to have customers going there. It's just... It's mind-blowing that people can't figure out that this system does not work. It says the core set of goods will include all fresh produce, meat, and seafood, along with 20 other essential items like cheese, milk, and bread, Mamdani said. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for the core set of goods 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuation, no sticker shock at the checkout line. So basically, every beginning of the month, they'll just take a look at the retail prices and lower the prices of everything. And this is self-implosion. The Mamdani administration has already identified 2 of the 5 locations in the city-owned grocery stores, La Marqueta in Manhattan and the Peninsula in the Bronx. La Marqueta is the first site selected to be one of the city's stores, but it's unlikely to be the first one open. The city still needs to build out the store. Construction operations are estimated to cost $30 million. So the construction of this city-owned socialist grocery store is going to cost the taxpayer, the people who can barely afford food as it is, $30 million to set up this store. And then they'll get taxed more in order to pay for this store, even though they can't already afford anything anyways. Do you guys see how this just doesn't work? All this does is hurt the people who are already hurting. That's all it does. It says the first New York City owned grocery store will be open by the end of 2027. Opening stores owned by the city was one of the mayor's signature campaign pledges. The goal is to have at least one of these city-owned grocery stores in each borough. But keep in mind, again, Mamdani is just a puppet. We've already went over that. We went over the fact that he was supported by many Chabad Jewish groups. So that whole angle is put in there. He's also supported by many higher up people that are involved with the Luciferian agenda. There's a whole campaign about it. Polymarket was involved, and we know Polymarket's connected to DARPA and the CIA. And this whole thing was a built, staged orchestration with Mamdani. So don't be surprised. And they're saying it's in total going to cost $70 million of taxpayer money to set up these grocery stores. Ay, caramba. But we have this. This just adds more fuel to the fire. Business group votes to sue over Mamdani's city-run grocery stores. Not just any business group. An immigrant-led business group. Oh yeah, now we got this angle coming in. Again, just sit back with your popcorn and enjoy the theater, people. The New York mayor's plans for government-run grocery stores could be derailed before the first one ever opens, as an immigrant-led coalition formed in opposition threatened legal action. Protesting. Oh man, this is like a Saturday Night Live skit. Protests against New York Mamdani have been ramping up of late, with groups taking stands over his alleged incitement of anti-Semitic violence and calls for him to be barred from the upcoming 25th anniversary September 11th memorial due to his Islamist ties. The opposition also includes the threat of a lawsuit as the Multicultural Business Coalition responded to the announcement about subsidized stores selling groceries 30% below retail, voting in favor of plans to combat the utilization of taxpayer money to create unfair competition. And again, I pointed this out back then. I'm going to point it out again. Why is it bad for Mamdani to do subsidized grocery stores? How is that socialism? But it's good for Trump to go out there and do his Freedom Fuel Network, which is the exact same thing. It's socialist subsidized fuel pumps. Because it's so funny. I keep hearing the right-wing people pointing out the socialist grocery stores of Mamdani, but yet they're dead silent when Trump announced his socialist gas network that he was putting through. There's no difference between the two. They're both subsidized socialist programs. But yet because Trump did it, it's good and not socialist, and Mamdani does it because he's bad and it's socialist grocery. Again, that's the narrative that makes you take your brain out, put it on the ground, and stomp on it and just be a zombie and follow a political party because you can't think for yourself, you can't use logic, you can't use your brain, and you don't actually believe in anything except what they tell you to believe in. So fascinating. Representing the group consisting of 50 chambers of commerce representing different ethnic groups that united in response to Mamdani's plans. And in advance of actually filing suit, the organization indicated its intent to send a letter to City Hall warning as much amid efforts to raise $1 million towards the potential legal fight. According to Garcia, a number of prominent figures have offered to help with finances, including conservative think tanks and politicians. Here we go. Strap in, everybody. We're going to have a theatrical political fireworks show going on. More lawfare to be thrown around. More lawfare to be thrown around. Again, it's just one of those things where we know that this stuff is corrupt. We know that it's not going to work, but they're purposely doing this to fuel this out. But yet people continue to fall for this idea that just because it's D and blue, it's automatically bad and socialist. But yet when the R in red does the exact same thing, there is no difference between Mamdani's grocery stores and Trump's fuel network. The exact same thing, subsidized at the expense of the taxpayer, reducing the prices significantly, taking business away from other privately owned stores. They're the exact same thing. One is socialist, the other is not, simply because one is blue and D, the other one is red and R. Don't fall for it. Stop falling for it. Pick your brain up off the floor, put it back in, and get the hamster spinning. Start thinking for yourself. I can't stress it enough. Now, we go from socialist grocery stores. Let's go to fascist government corporatism. How about we do that? Commerce Department quietly announces 7 new equity stakes in private companies. Now, it's so, again, I said this at the beginning, but I say it again here. It's so funny how we got a socialist program and a fascist program, one happening in New York by a Democrat, and one happening at the White House as a Republican, but yet they continue to tell you to talk about the C word, communism. Now, while these kind of have some layers that kind of overlap, they're not the same thing. Communism, socialism, fascism, Marxism, there's a reason why they're different. Now, they overlap in some areas, but they are different. But yet, while they're implementing these other things, they're telling you to just focus on communism. It's just the communism, guys. Meanwhile, they're doing all of this, including the Trump administration, who is as fascist as it gets, because they continue to put government equity into private corporations. Again, Mango Mussolini is a take from the regular Mussolini, who was the one who talked about corporatism being one of the main pillars of fascism. Welcome to it, everybody. The Department of Commerce quietly announced this week it will designate more than $870 million in federal incentives for semiconductor manufacturing in exchange for a minority equity stake in 7 companies. In a blog post Wednesday, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the NIST, said Commerce Chips Research and Development Office signed letters of intent with 7 companies to provide a combined $874 million in federal funding under the landmark Chips and Science Act. The department will receive a minority, non-controlling equity. This is just their language to make it seem like it's not that bad. We'll get to it in a second. We'll receive a minority, non-controlling equity stake in each company as a condition for receiving the funds to enhance the return for U.S. taxpayers. That is corporatism. That is fascism. I don't make the rules. I don't set the definitions, but that is 101 corporatism and fascism right there. Up to $300 million will go to Global Foundries, a semiconductor manufacturer, while Kepler, which is developing AI memory and logic technologies, will receive up to $245 million. Multibeam Corporation will get up to $140 million from the company's semiconductor equipment manufacturing, with remaining funds going to equipment makers Extropic, Thintronics, Obsidia Semiconductors, and Aluma Inc. The announcement comes nearly a year after Trump announced the federal government would take a 10% stake in Intel, one of the nation's largest chip manufacturers, for roughly $11 billion in federal subsidies the company received. The legislation signed by then-President Biden in 2022 provides federal subsidies to domestic semiconductor manufacturers to boost domestic production in the U.S. This was another case of signing a bill during the Biden administration to set up what Trump is doing right now. Again, this is something that we've talked about before. These administrations look like they're against each other, but we know when it comes to core things and core policy that must get through from the table down, that they set each other up for these things. And Biden signed the CHIPS Act, which set up Trump to do what he's doing right now, which is going through and taking stake in all these technology companies. Despite backlash last summer, the Trump administration moved last December to take a $150 million stake in Xlight, a startup developing laser technology in exchange for federal incentives. Now, that leads us to this. The government ownership stakes in companies becoming routine under Trump. The Commerce Department announced this week that 6 more companies are set to join the federal government's rapidly expanding corporation portfolio, bringing it to 30. In 2025, there was 0. 2026, the government has taken equity in 30 private companies. The The 7 non-binding letters of intent would provide up to $874 million in CHIPS and Science Act's research and development incentives. 6 recipients would be new additions to the portfolio. The 7th, GlobalFoundries, already has a proposed commerce stake attached to a separate $375 million Quantum Foundry award. Commerce is a minority, non-controlling equity stake in each company will be condition of final funding. Zoom out and the pattern is more striking. Since December, the CHIPS Research and Development Office has announced 19 final or proposed company awards totaling up to $3.8 billion. Keep in mind, the Trump administration takes your taxpayer money, you pay them to go and take and to give that money to a private company. Then the Trump administration goes and starts putting stuff on social media, which then starts messing with the market, and so then that money gets funneled right back into the pocket of Trump. Zoom out, and the pattern is striking. $3.8 billion, and they cover 18 companies because GlobalFoundries has 2 separate projects. 3 agreements are final, while 16 remain letters of intent. All 19 have been publicly tied to equity. Commerce current funding rules state that the award recipients may be required to provide equity warrants, intellectual property licenses, royalties, revenue sharing, and other instruments to generate a government return. Again, you get none of that. You pay for it. You get none of it. Fascism 101. Commerce says that these stakes enhance the return for taxpayers, but even a profitable portfolio would not resolve the underlying institutional problem. The federal government is now acting as regulator, customer, financier, and shareholder. Decisions involving contracts, trade restrictions, permits, and additional subsidies can affect the value of its holdings. Competitors have reason to question whether the playing field is level. Do you think that the government is going to be more inclined to do contracts and help private companies that are not subsidized by the government? Or is the government going to be more inclined to help with those that they currently have a stake in? I'll let you answer that question. And if a portfolio company falters, Washington will have an added incentive to protect its investment with more taxpayer support. So again, more inclined to bail out the companies that they're involved with and let the other ones fall. Calling the stakes minority and non-controlling does not eliminate those conflicts. Public announcement often reveals little about valuations, shareholder rights, oversight, or exit plans. Republicans warning that communists are taking over the Democratic Party might first want to ask their own administration is so eager to have the government acquire pieces of private companies. So again, this is just another one of those cases where it's right there in front of people's faces if they want to look at it. Again, they're continuing to feed you the C word over and over and over again. It's the playbook from the 50s. It's McCarthyism all over again. And they continue to just feed it. Again, I see it all over. I look at the comments of these videos, and the people are doing nothing but just regurgitating the same talking points that they've heard from the people on the video that they're currently watching, because those people continue to talk about communism and communism and communism, it's communism, it's communist, it's communist. Meanwhile, everything that they're doing, you got socialism going rampant, which again, people think socialism is communism. It's a different beast in itself. Then you have the Trump administration that's going full fascist on everything, but yet they won't admit that, even though they're doing the exact same thing that they're blaming everybody else for doing. Meanwhile, this is all with a trajectory to build something that's going to be 10 times worse than all of those put together. Everything is on the path towards that one world system that they're trying to establish, which currently is being built up into the form of a neo-feudalistic technocracy, where you're going to have a very few select kings on top, and then everybody else is going to be peasants, and they're going to be overruled by technocrats. And that's exactly what they're currently being built right now. And it fits pretty close. Again, the Bible's not, exactly clear on how the structure is going to look, but it sure seems to fit with the description that we do get in Scripture, that that's what they're going for. So again, you're over here staring at a blank wall, screaming communism into it because they told you to do so. Meanwhile, they're doing everything behind you that has nothing to do with communism whatsoever. They're just using that playbook, which wasn't real back in the 50s and the 60s, and it's certainly not real today, because communism is pointless at this point. It's a system that has been completely abandoned, except in certain locales across the world. That's because everybody's going on a trajectory towards something else, but they just want you caught up in that red scare. Don't fall for it. Think for yourself and just admit the truth of what's going on, that you've been lied to by the very group that continues to feed you these narratives to believe. And again, if I hear the word one more time, oh, the only reason why Trump is doing that is because a rhino told him to do it, he got bad information, then I don't know what to tell you. How can Trump be this genius pulling off 5D chess, but yet he continues to get fed wrong information by rhinos? It's like, come on, man. Come on. Oh, that's right, because you were told by the person on the video that you just left that comment that it's a rhino giving Trump bad information. Oh, man. Yeah, the look at this hand trick. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, right next to, well, you have something there. Yeah, you know. Anyways. All right, hydration break. Everybody grab a drink. All right. How are we doing on time? I think we're doing okay. We got one more thing, and then we're getting into this Morocco Spanish stuff. All right. We have ourselves a little chin scratcher here, where we don't necessarily get the full info. However, just using some logic and critical thinking, one can kind of come to a conclusion that probably fits. Ecuador prosecutor killed weeks after investigating alleged torture claims linked to the U.S. boat drone strikes. And it says authorities have not linked Alexandra Bravo, who's the Ecuador prosecutor, killing to the ongoing investigation. Of course not. We'll talk about why that is in just a second. It says the fatal shooting of an Ecuadorian prosecutor investigating explosive allegations surrounding U.S.-backed boat drone strikes has intensified scrutiny of one of the region's most controversial security operations. Alexandra Bravo was gunned down in broad daylight alongside her sister in the coastal city of Manta just weeks after taking on a sensitive investigation into claims that survivors of 3 separate drone strikes were tortured and kidnapped by U.S. entities following the attacks. Her and her sister, broad daylight, gunned down. According to police, Bravo was leaving a cafe with her sister on June 14th when a gunman riding a black motorcycle opened fire. Both women died in the attack after Bravo's sister reportedly tried to shield her from the bullets. Officers arriving at the scene recovered 5 9mm shell casings while Bravo's driver was injured. So 5 shells is not a case of just going in and trying to take out as many people as you can. 5 shells says there's a target, and they were aiming specifically for a target for only that little of shells. Despite being assigned police protection, here we go, our first chin scratching moment here. Despite being assigned a police protection detail because prosecutors in Ecuador frequently face security threats, officers tasked with protecting Bravo were reportedly absent when the shooting occurred. Now, why would they not be there for that moment, in that specific moment, when somebody went in and murdered her in broad daylight on the street? Could it be from the fact that the leader of Ecuador, Noboa, is one of Trump's proxy pawns? I say that because this has everything to do with the fact that she was investigating not only the illegal U.S. strikes on the boats, but also the fact that many of the people that survived were kidnapped and tortured by U.S. entities. And so you would want to go after the person that's investigating that, wouldn't you? So we removed the police detail to protect her and tell the person at that moment in time to go and take her out. It's an assassination story as old as time. Although Ecuador has experienced numerous attacks against members of its justice system in recent years, Bravo's killing has drawn added attention because of the high-profile investigation she had recently been handling. Bravo had been assigned to examine allegations connected to 3 separate drone strikes targeting Ecuadorian fishing boats believed to be involved in drug trafficking operations. Remember that whole ordeal that was going on back before the Venezuela situation? The survivors painted a remarkably similar picture. They claimed that the boats were struck by drones before armed personnel, whom they believed to be members of the U.S. military, U.S. Coast Guard based on their uniforms, detained them, which we got confirmation that the U.S. Coast Guard did, in fact, detain some survivors of those boat strikes, but we never got details about what they did with them. We know that they held them for a long time before they announced that they released them again. So put 2 and 2 together. Even though the United States denies it, we know that that was actually what happened. According to the accounts, they were held for more than a week, tortured, and eventually abandoned in El Salvador. The United States has categorically denied the allegations. Of course they are, because they're not going to come out and say that they did it. Despite those denials, the investigation reportedly gathered testimonies from dozens of survivors whose accounts closely matched one another. Medical examinations allegedly documented severe injuries, including damaged eyesight and serious wounds to their feet that were said to be consistent with the descriptions of explosions and mistreatment. According to anonymous sources quoted in the reports, prosecutors were allegedly encouraged to narrow the investigation and treat the incidents primarily as disappearances rather than exploring allegations of torture or kidnapping. So she got word that says, no, you're not going to be investigating this as a kidnapping and torture. You're just going to be investigating as disappearances. Something tells me she was not willing to play ball, or she played a theatrical game while investigating the truth of the matter. They found out and got her taken out. Now, again, we don't have verifiable evidence that says that's the case, but we know who the players are involved. We know that they are sick, evil, and corrupt men, both in the leadership of Ecuador and the leadership of the United States. And we know that the investigation had everything to do with illegal events and the murder of a whole bunch of people that have still yet, been proven to actually be carrying drugs. The United States refuses to show evidence that says that they were carrying drugs. Why? Probably because they weren't. Maybe some were, but for the most part, they just used that as fuel to go and do what they did in Venezuela. And so you have a woman here who was involved who got killed because of it, because she was investigating. Which then takes us to this. As a response, deadly U.S. boat strikes have failed to curb cocaine supply, the Pentagon and DEA officials say. Why? Because it had nothing to do with actually stopping cocaine, because who is the biggest drug trafficker in the world? The CIA. Yes. So why would they stop their own trade? They weren't. And so to play ball with the whole legal system, they put out a report that says, no, it hasn't changed. Trump administration's deadly military strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats have not reduced the amount of cocaine entering the United States, but they're prompting criminal organizations to develop new strategies and tactics and undermining traditional investigative methods, according to previously unreported assessment by the Drug Enforcement Administration, a closed-door congressional briefing, and interviews with current and former U.S. foreign officials. It says, in a recent assessment reviewed by the Washington Post, DEA analysts found the strikes have failed to affect the supply or price of cocaine in the United States and had led traffickers to diversify beyond go-fast boats and to avoid international waters, opting instead for larger boats and hemming close to the coastlines where the U.S. forces are less likely to open fire. In a closed-door briefing last month, Pentagon officials told lawmakers, I hate that word, the strikes in the international waters off South and Central America had not reduced its purity, because that's not what it was for. They probably didn't hit drug boats at all. The CIA probably maneuvered their own transport stuff a little bit, used this opportunity to do so they don't get caught, because they are the biggest drug trafficker in the world, because they use this as an opportunity to go and do something illegal in Venezuela, to illegally kidnap Maduro. I'm guessing, Colleen, you're new here. and don't necessarily know how I do my work. That's okay, you'll learn. Or somebody in chat will explain it to you. I always love people that don't know how this works come in and says, you're reading it from there, you're lost. It's like, no, I only read it from there because it's the most concise thing of something that I have verified and vetted on my own. So, all right. Let's go ahead. Yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and get into our final bit for the night, and it is the meat of it all, the Moroccan Mambo. Used to drop, it hurts to care. Yeah, actually caring and it can be quite painful. So let's talk about what's going on with this Spanish Morocco invasion immigrant thing, shall we? It's just a mess. That's what I've been calling it. Just a mess. Show of hands, how many people saw this? This whole situation with the 60,000. They claim 60,000. Did anybody actually count them? 60,000 Moroccans who jumped into Ceuta over there in the Spanish area, which actually isn't mainland Spain. It's actually connected to Morocco. You guys see this? I'm sure you guys did. This was like main news for about a day and a half, and then now they're talking about other stuff because that's just how they go. Yeah, a few of you saw it, yeah. Hey, yeah, I know, Jellyfish. That when I came up with the title, that was the song that was playing in my head. Hey, Mambo Italiano. Yeah, that was the thing that popped into my head too. All right, so I'm not necessarily believing that this was just a random event. I'm thinking that this might, we don't know, might have more to it, maybe a strategic plan at play. And there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that it was the US and Israel who were involved with orchestrating this event with Morocco. I'll get to why a little bit in a second. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff that's pointing towards that direction. Now, I think for the most part, what we've seen is either you've got people on the left that are putting it out there saying it's like, oh, see, this is just an opportunity for the right wingers to talk about this and that and the whole immigration thing. And, you know, this is it's actually Moroccan territory and all this type of stuff. And then you're going to get from the right wing. It says, see, this is what the woke leftists are doing. They're instituting all these illegal immigration and it's destroying the countries. And this is why we're grateful for Trump because he's over there trying to protect our borders and stuff. I'm sure people have seen the left-right narrative on this. We don't do that, however. We're going to cut down the middle of this, and we're going to take a look at what's going on. So Spain says migrants are returning from Ceuta after 57 die in border rush. Now, I think the death count is higher. I think there was a lot of people a part of this flash mob invasion that are probably dead at the bottom of the water that nobody has seen. I think the number's much bigger. We know that people in Ceuta were like the people that lived there. A lot of people were injured and hurt because of the whole situation happening there. So I think the number is a bit higher than what we're being told. And they say that that they're returning home. I'm seeing reports on both sides that says, well, the official government says that they're already home. We returned all 60,000. Not buying that. And then I'm seeing reports that says none of them have been returned, and they're all staying. I'm not buying that either. I think it's a mix of both. What I did see was a coordinated effort to make this all happen. I saw a whole bunch of people swimming over, because again, Ceuta is not connected to mainland Spain. This is on the coast of Morocco. And so they swam around over in. I saw trucks, huge trucks, being coordinated with Moroccan police, dropping people off at certain gates and whatnot, and the border control were opening the gates for people to get in too. So this was clearly Morocco was clearly involved, hands-on, with making this flash mob invasion happen. And so, out of response to that, we have this that says Italy cracks down on free movement to Spain as Schengen. I don't know how to pronounce that, I'll be honest. I meant to look this up, the pronunciation, forgot to. So we're just going to say Schengen. Unity crumbles. It says Italy's right-wing government said on Friday it was ending open air and sea transport with Spain in reaction to the sudden influx of tens of thousands of migrants from Morocco into the Spanish enclave Ceuta in North Africa. Rome's move was a signal of wide concerns across Europe, particularly in the 29-country Schengen passport-free travel zone, that Madrid was not doing enough to control the surge of migrants. France also introduced additional border controls. Now, this is fascinating. This is funny because it's not connected to mainland Spain. The fact that they ended this is, again, I think another PR political stunt, because they're not connected to mainland Spain, so that it's not like they can just walk through the borders into all the other countries over in Europe, which of course we know is dealing with their own invasion over there. But this also, the Schengen program doesn't apply to Ceuta, because if you exit Ceuta into the mainland region of Europe, you are required to go through identification and processing and everything. It's not open like it is on the mainland. They have their own system because these are autonomous groups connected to Spain. And so this move, this PR stunt of shutting it down, doesn't actually apply to Ceuta. So this is a PR stunt. Simple as that. This is a PR stunt. This is a political display in order to put the pressure on Spain. Why? We'll get to that in just a second. But this doesn't even apply to the situation that was currently going on. So very fascinating, which again leads to the fact that there's more to all of this. And then we know this was in April of this year. We know the leader Sanchez, dude, he's a socialist. He doesn't play ball with the European Union. And he's been very outspoken about not supporting Israel because of the Gaza situation. Well, on top of that, Spain approves plan to give around 500,000 undocumented migrants legal status. Now, I looked into this as well. Those who went into Ceuta wouldn't even be qualified for this program either, if they're going to abide by the program as it is. So again, there's a situation there. But this wouldn't even be applied, but we do know that this is their position on it. Spain's government has approved plans to give legal status to 500,000 undocumented migrants, allowing them to be integrated formally into the workforce. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez described his government's decision as both an act of justice and necessity for Spain. Ugh. In a letter to Spaniards posted on social media, Sanchez, a socialist, said that the mass legalization sought to acknowledge the reality of nearly 500,000 people who already form part of our everyday lives. So basically saying, they've been illegal here for over a year, so let's just go ahead and give them jobs. That's basically what he's doing. The government's plan will offer a 1-year renewable residence permit to undocumented migrants. In order to be eligible, applicants must prove that they have already spent 5 months living in Spain and have a clean criminal record. They have between April 16th and the end of June to apply. So again, this wouldn't be, the people coming over wouldn't be granted this ability anyways, but again, it's not like Spain really cares because this is how they treat it. So again, this is one of those situations where it's not as cut and dry, not as black and white as most people want to lead you to believe on this. Again, it's just the black and white conversation when it comes to events like this really hurts things because it's all about pushing a political narrative on each side when there's so much to it. Which leads us to this. This was August 3rd of 2025. Trump reaffirms U.S. recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara, basically saying Morocco owns Ceuta and the other enclave there. I can't remember. We'll get to it. Forget Lyle or whatever it is. We'll get to it. Sorry, there's just so much stuff rattling up there right now. U.S. President Donald Trump has reiterated his country's recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara, affirming the Rabbit's autonomy plan is only viable solution for the long-standing territorial dispute. We'll get into the history of this at the end of all of it. The Western Sahara conflict has remained unresolved for decades, with Morocco asserting sovereignty over the territory, while the Algerian-backed Polisario Front continues to demand independence for what it calls the Saudi Republic. Trump initially agreed to recognize Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara at the end of the first term as part of the 2020 deal, in which Morocco became the fourth Arab country to normalize ties with Israel, part of the Abraham Accords. Okay, we're starting to see a little bit of a connection here, aren't we? Yeah. So Morocco signs on to the Abraham Accords to recognize Israel, and now the United States is recognizing Morocco's sovereignty over the area. Okay. In 2023, Israel formally recognized Morocco's sovereignty over the territory of Western Sahara as well. Starting to see it now, aren't we? In April, Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed that the U.S. remains committed to Morocco's position, but Saturday marked Trump's first direct remarks on the issue since returning to office. So again, that was August 3rd of 2025. Trump comes out after Morocco recognizes Israel, signs on to Abraham Accords, and is now tying himself to Morocco, saying that is your sovereign territory over there. Then, a couple years later, Israel gets involved with it and also recognized Morocco as well. So you got a trifecta of Morocco, United States, and Israel that's been built. Okay. August 3rd, Trump did it. Today, August 1st of 2026. Message from Trump to His Majesty the King Mohammed VI on Throne Day. It says, the United States was clear. We recognize Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara, and we support Morocco's serious, credible, and realistic autonomy proposal as the only basis for the just and lasting solution. Literally the day after what happened in Ceuta, they're basically pouring it on, saying we support your sovereignty of that region. Any other path prolongs the status quo and is unacceptable. This urgently needed solution will not only bring peace to the region, but prosperity and greater integration for all of Africa. This dispute must end now, and the United States will continue to drive progress towards the end. The United States will continue to drive progress toward that end. You guys following? Are you guys following along on this? You seeing it? Starting to see that maybe there's a little bit more to what just happened than what we're being told? Oh, it doesn't stop there. We also have this. Trump's Moroccan Sahara Highway just became one of Israel's quietest strategic wins. If you guys don't know, the King of Morocco named a Saharan highway after Trump. Now, because this website sucks, I can't make it any bigger. I apologize, guys. So I have it on screen. I'm just going to read it. When U.S. President Donald Trump publicly thanked King Mohammed VI of Morocco for naming a major highway after him, the predictable reaction followed almost immediately. Commentators in Washington and across European capitals dismissed the gesture as pure personal branding, another monument added to the growing list of places carrying Trump's name. The President Donald J. Trump Highway, stretching 655 miles from Tiznit to Dakhla along Morocco's Atlantic coast, is a deliberate instrument of state power, a physical expression of Moroccan sovereignty over its Sahara, and a quiet but significant strategic gain for Israeli security in a region where vacuums have repeatedly invited hostile influence. So this was July 27th of 2026, just a few days ago. In the final weeks of the first presidential term, Donald Trump engineered one of the most consequential packages of modern Middle Eastern diplomacy, the normalization of relations between Israel and the Kingdom of Morocco under the framework of the Abraham Accords. Not quite as historic as people want you to believe. I'll get to that at the end too. There's a lot to this, guys, so hang with me. Central to that agreement was formal American recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara and clear support of Rabat's autonomy plan. Israel completed this strategic triangle in July of 2023. Prime Minister Netanyahu formally recognized Moroccan sovereignty over the Western Sahara, aligning Jerusalem with Washington's earlier decision and closing a critical diplomatic circle. Very, very interesting. So, we've got the Moroccan king naming a highway after Trump recognizes their sovereignty because they signed on to the Abraham Accords recognizing Israel, and then Israel recognizes Morocco's sovereignty. Very fascinating. What else does this story contain? Well, Ceuta, Melilla, that's it, Melilla, are not in Spain. Huh. Okay. Starting to get a little bit more. Top Rubio ally escalates against Madrid. This is April 4th of this year. You'll notice how all of this buildup surrounding Ceuta and Melilla are all being just pushed earlier this year. And then, boom, we have something that just happened yesterday. Says, in what may be the most politically consequential utterance by a sitting U.S. congressman on the status of Spain's North African enclaves in years, Republican Representative Mario Diaz-Balart has declared that Ceuta and Melilla are not in the geographic territory of Spain, but in the territory of Morocco, and that their fate is established, negotiated, and discussed between friends and allies. The remarks, delivered in an interview published April 1st by Spanish newspaper El Español, did not emerge from the margins of American politics. Diaz-Balart is no backbencher. The Cuban-American lawmaker. Oh, we'll get to that in a second. It is a spicy meatball, I'll tell you what. Lawmaker chose the House Subcommittee on National Security, Department of State, and related programs, the appropriations body that bankrolls American diplomacy and foreign operations. This dude sits up next to Marco Rubio when it comes to these relations. Imagine that. Two Cuban boys sit atop when it comes to this. He is among... keep in mind, this is the same State Department that says Cuba is responsible for the past 7 decades when it comes to the entire communist revolution in the Western Hemisphere. And yet all these decisions are being made by Cuban guys. Anybody find that fascinating? He is among, Diaz-Balart here, is among the closest congressional confidants of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with whom he has worked on Latin American and Middle Eastern policy for over a decade. He is, by every institutional metric, a man whose words carry the weight of policy signaling rather than rhetorical indulgence. And he has come out and said that those two regions are not Spanish. They belong to Morocco, following the same triangle of Trump, Netanyahu, and the King of Morocco that were also putting this forward. Which leads us to this. This is May of this year. U.S. Congressional Committee describes Ceuta and Melilla as located in Moroccan territory. So not only did he come out and say it, but now the Congressional Committee is declaring it. A committee of the United States House of Representatives has formally described Ceuta and Melilla as Spanish-administered cities located in Moroccan territory, marking what appears to be the first time a legislative body in Washington has cast explicit doubt on Madrid's sovereignty over the two historically Moroccan enclaves. It states that the committee notes that the Spanish-administered cities of Ceuta and Melilla are located in Moroccan territory and remain the subject of Morocco's longstanding claim. It then declares support for the Secretary of State's efforts to encourage diplomatic engagement between Morocco and Spain on the future status of those enclaves. The text also reaffirms Washington's enduring partnership with Rabat, invoking the 1786 Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and directs no less than $20 million under the National Security Investment Program and another $20 million under the Foreign Military Financing Program for Morocco in the fiscal year of 2027. So $40 million of taxpayer money is being dedicated to supporting Morocco obtaining those two Spanish enclaves, the ones that were just invaded by Moroccan people. Now, this has a picture of the actual document, the House Committee document that says so, but rather than taking their word for it, like people seem to claim that I have no receipts, here's the actual document that you get from the government website right here. And it says, Morocco, this is from the House Committee, The committee continues assistance from Morocco in support of the United States national security interests and directs not less than $20 million under national security investment programs and not less than $20 million under foreign military financing program. The committee, the U.S. House Committee, notes the historic alliance between the United States and Morocco is formalized in 1786 by the Moroccan-American Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The committee notes that the Spanish-administered cities of Ceuta and Melilla are located in Moroccan territory. So the United States is taking this official position not only from Trump's own statements, but also from the House Committee that says that Ceuta and Melilla, even though they are Spanish enclaves, are actually sovereign territory of Morocco. They're taking that stance. Again, we'll get to the history at the end. And remain the subject of Morocco's longstanding claim. The committee supports efforts by the Secretary of State to encourage diplomatic engagement between Morocco and Spain on the future status of Ceuta and Melilla. So very interesting position. Now, a little background on Cuban boy Mario Diaz-Balart. Oh, I told you we would get to him. Let's find out his history. Since he's taken such a firm stance that is Moroccan territory, let's find out where he comes from. Diaz-Balart was born in 1961 in Fort Lauderdale to Cuban parents, the late Cuban politician Rafael Diaz-Balart and his wife Hilda Cabero Brunet. So a Cuban politician was his father. He is a member of the Diaz-Balart family. His aunt, Mirta Diaz-Balart, was the first wife of Cuban President Fidel Castro. I'll wait for that to sink in for a moment. The guy that's up there with the Secretary of State, who's one of the main dudes under Marco Rubio's leadership, who's making this gigantic stance regarding all of this, is not only a son of a Cuban politician, but comes from a family who his aunt was the first wife to Castro. Hey, any right-wing podcasters or Prophecy Mafia guys, you gonna talk about this? No, I don't think so, because that doesn't push your little woke leftist invasion theory, does it? Nope. So, there's more to all this. Oh, don't worry. There's more. But the question becomes, why? Why are they targeting this little region? Why would they target it? Especially making such a increased alliance just in the past couple years with Morocco, not only the United States, but Israel. Why would they want to do that? Because they're targeting the areas that control the Strait of Gibraltar. See, if they control these areas, they control the strait. And what are we witnessing right now when it comes to the reset we are currently witnessing? Transportation. Straits. We are watching a reset of the world's transportation straits. That's what we're witnessing right now. And so for them being the United States and Israel, to coordinate something with this particular area, they could, in fact, I'm not saying that this is for sure what's going on, because I don't know, but this certainly does open the door for them to take control of the Strait of Gibraltar, which, if you guys don't know, sits on the other side of the Strait of Mandeb, the Red Sea. It comes from those areas. So keep that in mind as we watch this. Again, I don't necessarily know if all this heat over in that region, while it may look like it's cooling down right now, even though it was just a quick flash hit, we might see some more stuff in the future surrounding the Strait of Gibraltar. So Again, this is just something stored in the filing cabinet, and we'll see what happens in the future. Now, there's a little bit more to all of this. We've talked about the U.S. side of the Moroccan situation. Let's talk about the Israel side. When we start here, this was July 15th of this year. Morocco signs agreement with Board of Peace to join Gaza International Force. Wow. July, just half a month ago, before all of this stuff started happening? Quite a coincidence, don't you think? Morocco signed an agreement on Wednesday to participate in the International Stabilization Force, the ISF, in the Gaza Strip by deploying senior officers to the ISF Joint Command. The meeting was held upon the instructions of King Mohammed VI, which means the call came directly from the king. Yes, the king of Morocco, who's been buddying up with Trump and Netanyahu. He gave direct instructions to do this. Oh, interesting. Let's hear from Netanyahu's own son, Yair Netanyahu, shall we? This was back May of 2019. Yair Netanyahu, Netanyahu's son, put this out publicly and said, "Dear Arabs and Muslims, want to free occupied Arab Islamic lands? Here's a good start." And he points out Ceuta and Melilla, basically saying, go take your territory back, Moroccans. This is Netanyahu's son. He also says, "Dear Spanish people, I see all of you got upset. Ceuta and Melilla are tiny territories you own across the sea on another continent. Now imagine how we feel, the Jews feel, when your government calls for Israel to give away Judea and Samaria, which is the Jewish heartland." Then he says, let's make a deal. He says the quiet part out loud. Let's make a deal. We, State of Israel, won't fund NGOs in your country calling you to give away Ceuta and Melilla, and you will stop funding NGOs in our country that calls us to give away Judea and Samaria. He says the quiet part out loud, that they are indeed funding groups that call and commit uprisings for Morocco to take those two regions. That's Netanyahu's son, everybody. It gets better. This is April of this year. After kicking Spain out of Gaza ceasefire center, Netanyahu promises that countries opposing Israel will pay immediate price. So because Spain became vocally prominent, Sanchez became vocally prominent, calling out Israel for what they were doing in Gaza, Netanyahu kicks them out of the Gaza ceasefire center, a place that they've been for a very, very long time, and threatens them, saying anybody who speaks out against us will pay a price. Convenient timing, don't you think? Countries that wage a diplomatic war against Israel will pay an immediate price, says Netanyahu, after Israel boots Spain from the Civil Military Coordination Center in Kiryat Gat. The CMCC oversees the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Spain had a permanent presence in the headquarters. Israel will not remain silent in the face of those attack us, he says in a video statement. The move is sure to play well in the White House. Spain closed its airspace to U.S. planes involved in attacks on Iran after it denied use of the jointly operated military bases. Ties between Jerusalem and Madrid steadily deteriorated over following 2 years as Spain's government expressed the increasing anger and frustration against Israel over the war in Gaza. Last month, Spain permanently withdrew its ambassador to Israel. It sent its ambassador back to Iran this week. I am not prepared to tolerate this hypocrisy and this hostility, he concludes. I do not intend to allow any country to wage a diplomatic war against us without paying an immediate price. Now, I remember when this video came out back in April, I just kind of held on to it because I'm like, I'm not sure where this is going. Well, I guess we just found out now, didn't we? It gets better. Get a little bit more details on this. Of course, Netanyahu accuses Spain of hostility towards Israel after blocking it from the Gaza Truce Center. Relations between Israel and Spain has deteriorated significantly since Madrid recognized the Palestinian state in 2024. Both countries have withdrawn their ambassadors. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has been one of the most vocal critics of Israel's war in Gaza, which is sparked by Palestinian movement, Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023. He also opposed the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran that began with strikes on February 28th. Israel's foreign minister Gideon Sa'ar had previously accused the Spanish government of standing with tyrants by opposing U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran. Spain also only established diplomatic ties with Israel in 1986, following the death of dictator General Francisco Franco in 1975, who avoided recognizing Israel. Which then leads us to this. From January of 2026, Israel extends military reach into Africa with Morocco Defense Partnership. Man, this is deep ties. Morocco has deep ties to the United States and Israel, and both United States and Israel have come out basically saying Morocco needs to take those two territories back, quote unquote. Man, Israel and Morocco have signed a joint military work plan for 2026, formalizing a new phase of defense cooperation as the two countries mark 5 years since restoring diplomatic relations under the Abraham Accords. The agreement was reached in Tel Aviv during the latest session of the Israel-Morocco Joint Military Committee, which has become the main platform for coordinating bilateral security relations. In recent years, Morocco has sharply reoriented its arms procurement strategy, increasingly favoring Israeli suppliers over traditional European and American partners. And again, this was just January of this year. A lot of this stuff happening early this year, and look at what's going on now. Would you guys believe me if I told you it gets better? Abraham Accords reached the Strait. How Israel can help Morocco reclaim its north. That would be Ceuta and and Melilla. U.S.-Spain tensions over NATO. Iran create opening for Morocco to press claims. Ceuta and Melilla. Again, this is a website that I can't make it bigger. I'm sorry. It says Spain's refusal to allow the United States access to its Rota and Moran military bases during the Iran campaign, its consistent failure to meet NATO defense spending targets, and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's confrontational posture towards the Trump administration have collectively generated something rare in North African affairs, a genuine crack in Spain's strategic armor over Ceuta and Melilla. Into that crack, Morocco's most consequential new partner, Israel, is uniquely positioned to press. In March of 2026, Michael Rubin, oops, didn't mean to press that. Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institution, writing through the Middle East Forum, called on the Trump administration to formally recognize Ceuta and Melilla as occupied Moroccan territory, branding Spain as a colonial power running colonies through the Strait of Gibraltar. Michael Rubin, he was also connected to the Pentagon and stuff back in the day. He called for the Trump administration to formally recognize Ceuta and Melilla. Days later, Representative Mario Diaz-Balart, chairman of the House Subcommittee on National Security and one of Marco Rubio's closest congressional confidants, declared publicly that the enclaves are not in the geographic territory of Spain, but rather in Moroccan territory, and that their fate should be established, negotiated, and discussed between friends and allies. literally doing exactly what Michael Rubin called for. Spain's estrangement from Washington has deepened further. An internal Pentagon email reported by Reuters in April of 2026. I remember we went over this back then. I'm sure some of you remember this too. We said, not sure what this is going to lead to. Well, maybe we found out. Outlined options, including suspending Spain from NATO over its refusal to facilitate U.S. operations against Iran. Trump himself had already called Spain terrible in March and directed his Treasury Secretary to cut economic dealings with Madrid. Critically, Article 6 of the Washington Treaty explicitly excludes territories in continental Africa from NATO's collective defense obligations, meaning Ceuta and Melilla stand legally exposed. So if anybody attacks those two enclaves, it's not the responsibility of NATO to come to its aid. They just happen to fall right outside of it. Yep. In January of 2026, Israel and Morocco signed a joint military work plan for the year during the third meeting of their Joint Military Committee in Tel Aviv, and the two countries had already concluded a security cooperation agreement in 2021. This created an operational triangular relationship between Washington, Jerusalem, and Rabat. Israel's voice in that triangle carries disproportionate weight, however. When Israeli officials signal alignment with a partner's strategic interests, that signal registers powerfully in a White House that has placed the Abraham Accords expansion at the center of its foreign policy vision. See, that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is Trump has staked his name to the Abraham Accords as one of his greatest accomplishments in the world. And how Israel views that is a leash on the Trump administration to do anything that they want them to do in accordance with the Abraham Accords. That's an angle that a lot of people don't realize. The Abraham Accords are actually a leash upon the Trump administration. They are utilizing Trump's ego to control him. I know I've already said this, but I got to say it again. Would you believe me that it gets better? For that, we got to learn about a guy named Andre Azoulay. He's number 30 of the top 50 influential Jews. Andre Azoulay advises Morocco's King Mohammed VI and has been dubbed the most powerful Jew in the Muslim world. His daughter Audrey is a driving force as a head of UNESCO. Dubbed the most powerful Jew in the Muslim world, Andre has been a close personal advisor to Moroccan King Mohammed VI and his father, King Hassan II, since 1991. He has also been the head and founder of Global Cultural Institutions and has been heavily involved behind the scenes in promoting peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors. Morocco, whose Jewish community dates back over 2,000 years, has long had informal ties with Israel and normalized its relationship with the country in 2020 as part of the U.S.-backed Abraham Accords. Goes back deeper than that. We'll get to that in a second. On September 6th, Andre was the recipient of Israel's Presidential Medal of Honor. President Isaac Herzog's office stated, Andre has made an extraordinary contribution to the Moroccan Jewry and Jewish world and the State of Israel in cultivating and preserving relations with Morocco over the years, preserving Jewish heritage in Morocco, and providing support and advice to Israeli leaders in their quest for the peace of the Middle East. His vision of establishing friendly and peaceful relations between Israel and Morocco was realized as the Abraham Accords, and his influence is evident in every area of these relations. This is pretty much cementing that these three are working in coordination with each other, and most likely all played a factor in what we just witnessed with the invasion. So if we get to this, the Abraham Accords, less historic than advertised. This was written on December 8th, 2025. Very interesting read, actually, because It goes to show that the Abraham Accords aren't as extraordinary as many people like to make them out to be. But if we jump down here, says Morocco, getting to the Moroccan side of the agreement, the Abraham Agreement, Morocco offers a case that looks more dramatic at first glance and becomes less so upon close inspection. Moroccan troops fought Israel in the War of 1948 and in the Six-Day War. Rabat denounced Israel for decades and joined the regional boycott. Yet, the palace also cultivated one of the most intimate covert relationships that Israel ever enjoyed with an Arab monarchy. A former Israeli general, Shlomo Gatzel, credits Moroccan intelligence with a decisive role in Israel's victory in 1967. 2 years earlier, King Hassan II invited Arab leaders to a summit in Casablanca and secretly recorded their private deliberations. Moroccan services then provided those recordings to the Israeli counterparts. So even during this whole situation, Morocco has been working with Israel to provide them with intelligence. The tapes revealed confusion and unpreparedness among the Arab commanders. Israeli planners drew confidence from the knowledge. The ties reached far beyond espionage. A large Moroccan Jewish community migrated to Israel after 1948 and created a deep social bridge. The BBC notes that roughly 900,000 Israelis claim Moroccan ancestry. Israeli agencies equipped and trained Moroccan forces and assisted in the murder of Mehdi Ben Barka, we'll get to that, a prominent opposition leader. Morocco erased Jewish immigration and helped Israel keep tabs on other Arab regimes. During the 1990s, Rabat opened low-level diplomatic offices with Israel. The Washington Institute recalls how both governments closed those offices when the Second Intifada erupted, but they never severed their intelligence and security channels. So it was a public relations display. Hey, we're closing offices, we're not working together anymore, but behind the scenes they were. When Morocco decided to sign the Abraham Accords in 2020, its leaders did not act out of sudden affection for Zionism. They pursued U.S. recognition of their control over Western Sahara, an outcome that analysts at the security distillery correctly identified as Rabat's main motive. It was a deal. You sign on to the Abraham Accords and recognize Israel because you guys have been working together for decades anyways. And you'll get the support of both the United States and Israel that territory is yours. The accord formalized a very old relationship and delivered a long-sought territorial prize. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Give me one second here. There's something else. Just give me 1 second. Thought there was something else I missed, but nope, can't find it. Okay. Just wanted to double check something. Don't want to leave something out. So getting into a little bit more of the history, we're just about done here, but just to get a little bit more history on how far this back goes and how Israel and Morocco have been working together. It mentioned how Israel helped assassinate one of the king's opposition. Well, we get a little bit here. Israel's involvement in the death of Moroccan opposition leader revealed. This has to do with Ben Barka back in 1965. It says Mehdi Ben Barka, exiled leader of the left-wing National Union of Popular Forces, the UNFP, an opposition party to Moroccan King Hassan II, was kidnapped at a brasserie in Paris's left bank on October 29, 1965. His body was never found, but many blame the Moroccan state, which had sentenced him to death in absentia for an alleged plot against the king and for calling upon the Moroccan soldiers to refuse to fight Algeria in the 1963 Sand War. Well, on November 2nd, 1965, Mossad operative reportedly bought tools and corrosive materials in Paris, including short-handled shovels, a lamp, screwdriver, and 15 packets of sodium hydroxide, which he later stored in a safe house in St. Cloud, rented by the Mossad for Cab 1, a Moroccan security unit. Mossad and Cab 1 met before the assassination to finalize the detail of the operation, and Israeli spies were to patrol the road to Ben Barka's detention site and also provided advice for the best place to bury the body in the forest. Ben Barka was then taken to the bathroom, nominally for torturing purposes, and his head was put underwater in a bath that contained poison, so he drowned and poisoned. And then Morocco and Israel have maintained covert relations since at least 1960. So Israel actually, back in the 1960s, helped Morocco eliminate one of the opposition leaders because they had ties to King Hassan II of Morocco. So this is a relationship that goes back a long time. So it would make sense that they would be working together for this territory that surrounds Gibraltar, right? So to put this all in perspective, to kind of close it all out and make this a quick summary of what we went over regarding this, call it the Moroccan Mambo. So back in 2020, Morocco's leaders agreed to recognize Israel. The United States says it officially recognizes Morocco's claim over the Western Sahara, and the Trump administration sells $1 billion worth of weapons to Morocco. In 2021, King Mohammed VI of Morocco awards President Trump the Order of Muhammad. He comes to the White House in a visit and awards Trump the Order of Muhammad. Trump, in response, awards the king with the Legion of Merit. Yeah, the good old boys club, right? In 2021, about 8,000 Moroccans invade Ceuta. So if you guys don't know, this event already happened. Morocco has already done the exact same play back in 2021, but it was 8,000 of them. Morocco and Israel then sign a defense memorandum of understanding. In 2023, Netanyahu then formally recognizes Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara. And in 2025, thousands of Moroccans take to the streets to protest against the IDF Gaza situation. State Department reiterates the U.S. recognition of Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara, solidifying what Trump has already done. And Spain says it will not agree to 5% NATO spending, which then Trump threatens removal of Spain from NATO, as well as to cancel all trade with them. So that leads us to the Moroccan Mambo of 2026. And we have Spain refuses to allow the United States access to its Rota and Moran military bases for the Iran bombings. Trump announces that the United States will cut off all trade with Spain. The Pentagon email reveals that the United States is holding internal discussions to suspend Spain from NATO. 60,000 illegals cross into Ceuta via swimming, massive trucks coordinated by Moroccan police, and the border control opening the gates for them. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, accuses Madrid of hypocrisy, basically saying, you're claiming that we can't go and get our territory back, but yet you're claiming that Morocco can't get their territory back. And Trump blames Spain for the invasion problem that just took place. Going over some history, because I said we would get there, this kind of really shines the light on everything. Because back in 1640, before the United States is even the United States, back in 1640, Ceuta remained with Spain after Portugal split from the Hispanic monarchy during the Portuguese Restoration War. So back in 1640, Portugal decides that they don't want to be under the Spanish crown anymore. And so they split. Ceuta, rather than going with Portugal, decides that they want to stay with Spain. It's always been Spanish. Unlike what the United States is claiming. It's been Spanish since 1640 and prior to that, actually. So it's not Moroccan territory. Melilla has been under Spanish control since 1497. It was originally invaded and colonized and has been under control of Spain since 1497. So this idea that those two regions are actually Moroccan territory is just false. It's false. It's Spanish territory. Whether you agree with Spain or not, Spanish territory. But yet the United States and Israel are claiming that that's not true and that's actually Moroccan territory. They want to, again, alter history for their own personal agenda, which I think falls under the Luciferian agenda in this case. Interesting, right? See, it makes a whole lot more sense when you ditch the political paradigm. You don't follow the narratives. You don't pick a side between corrupt, evil leaders. And you simply just use logic and critical thinking to go and investigate the truth of the matter, to figure out what is going on. See, this situation is being used in very specific ways to push propaganda narratives. Whether you're on the left or the right, they're twisting it in some type of way to push some type of narrative. Rather than seeking the truth and reporting the truth, they want you to believe whatever their side is telling you to believe. And they're going to route this in some type of way to make it about something or other or something like that. I don't know. Just you guys can think about it. The left's got their own gamut of propaganda pieces. The right's got their own. And they're going to route it in some type of way. When this is the matter of fact, when we look at this, we look at history, there's clearly a triangular group here that's all been working in coordination with each other. And this just happens to align with all of it. And they're trying to change history on who owns those regions. And there's clearly something at play. The only thing that makes sense in my mind has to do with the Strait. Because clearly we're seeing a whole reset of transport and the Straits. And we're clearly seeing that right now. And the next one that would be on the list would be the one that sits on the other side of the Red Sea, which would be Strait of Gibraltar. So again, this is just one of those situations where we can't continue to just go with the narratives. We can't just continue to believe what's being pushed out there. We got to dive a little bit into this stuff. We got to dig a little bit into this stuff and figure out what's going on and really understand the situation at play, that none of these people are for us. All these people are against us. They use us as pawns. Again, all those people that were trucked in, I can almost guarantee you that probably half, if not more than half of the people that were trucked in or told to go and directed to get into Sierra like that, I can probably guarantee none of them were wiser. They were probably told or promised something on the end, or they were told that, this is what's over there. We need you to go do this, or their buddies signed up for it and they just went along with their friends, and they probably were just pawns, patsies involved with this whole thing. Obviously, there's some that are there to wrangle the crowd and direct them and whatnot. But this clearly shows that there's a hand that was involved with this, directing this to happen. It was coordinated, obviously. And so there's definitely a lot there. Again, you're going to probably hear from some people that says, oh, it's going to be some group from the left that caused this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, stop with this whole left-right thing and just go with the fact that there's a more global plan involved with all this. And that's clear if you're willing to look at the truth. And we just dived into a lot of stuff. And most of it just happened to occur just a few months ago before this whole thing started happening. Will this evolve further? Maybe. I'm going to keep an eye on the Strait of Gibraltar now, though. I am definitely going to be doing that, because after looking up all this stuff, that might be the play in all this. So, with all that in mind, we always, of course, end with the most important, and then there's always the people that's got to go with the technicality stuff. You understand what I'm saying, so why just don't understand people like that. We always end with the most important part of all this, and it has to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ, because none of this stuff matters at all if we don't have our hope and our faith and our souls in the hands of Jesus. It really doesn't matter. And so with that, we end with the gospel. And again, we understand that Jesus Christ is the truth. And he's the one that we need to seek out. And if we seek him out, we find the truth, we find the gospel, which is as simple as ABC. A is you admit that you're a sinner, the act of repentance, metanoia, changing from self to Christ, returning from self to Christ. It's one of those things where how can we truly believe in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior? How can we believe in Jesus Christ as the one that saves us if we don't first recognize why we need him? Because again, atheists believe in Jesus Christ. Atheist historians believe in Jesus Christ. Yeah, he was a man who walked. Muslims believe in Jesus Christ. All these people believe in Jesus Christ. Are they saved? No, because it's the type of belief that you have in him. And it's through repentance that allows us to have the true belief in Jesus Christ. We believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God. That he came down 100% man, 100% God. The God-man, the one and only, and he lived the perfect sinless life. The one and only to do so, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders as the spotless lamb, to take our place upon that cross, be crucified in our place, and die willingly. But because there's power in the blood of Jesus Christ, he defeated death and rose again on the third day, for all who believe in him shall not perish but live forever in his presence and in his glory. He did it. He willingly gave his life as the perfect sacrifice for all who believe in him shall not perish but live forever in his presence and in his glory. Again, one of those things where, there's a difference between knowing and believing. You can know the story. You can believe that Christ walked the earth. But if you have not placed your faith in Christ as Lord and Savior, the one who takes away your sin, then you are not saved. Understand the difference between those beliefs. And see, as we call upon the Lord, when we receive salvation, we are given a wonderful supernatural gift of prayer that allows us direct access at any moment of any day to enter into the throne room of God and speak directly to our Father. And he desires it so much that he even wrote in his word, says, do not cease speaking to me. He wants to hear from you consistently. We say, Lord God, thank you. Thank you for sending your son, Jesus Christ, to be the ultimate perfect sacrifice and for saving me. God, we are in a dark, deceptive world right now. You know this. But we ask for your help, for your guidance, for your wisdom, for your eyes to allow us to see through the darkness and the deception and the narratives and the programming and the brainwashing and the propaganda, to go out of our own way to make sure that we don't fall for our own personal biases and that we seek the truth to allow us to be better watchmen that you have called us to be, to go out there and warn people, to share the truth and to spread the gospel of your Son, Jesus Christ. And we ask, Lord Jesus, that you please come soon. Maranatha. In your holy name that we pray. Amen. All right. Let's see what we got for questions. We only have one question. Y'all are slacking in the questions. Let's see. Oh boy, I shouldn't have said that. Now next time there's going to be like 50. Let's see. Patrick. Let's see. Cyber attack on the U.S. water supply services in the past 24 hours, blaming Iran, of course. Yeah, I saw that. Whenever I see this stuff like that, man, that stuff happens every day. And so it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't know, the fact that they're blaming Iran, that I don't buy that Iran hacked into our water services. I don't buy that for a second. Yeah, it's just whenever I see this hack stuff like that, I don't ever buy it, because it's always China or Iran that's doing it. China hacked us again. Iran hacked us again. It's like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. There's something else going on. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't really look too far into it. I've been kind of preoccupied looking at other stuff, obviously, but yeah, I'm not buying that it's Iran, though, from what I do know. I don't know who it would be. I don't know why they would do it. Maybe this has something to do with them trying to push the thing that they're going to start bombing Iran harder than ever this weekend. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not buying that it's Iran, personally. So I don't know who did it or what reason for, but not buying the narrative on that one. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyways. All right, y'all. That's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me this evening. Yeah, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. Again, YouTube is hammering my channel right now. They're going to hammer me for this one too. I already know it. So yeah, double check to make sure you're still subscribed, and then please share it out to people. Like it as well. Certainly appreciate it. We're trying to get this information out to as many people as we possibly can. So please help me out with that one. Please, sir. May I have another? Also, follow along on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be backup live streaming over on Rumble. Telegram post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. Put up on Telegram as well. So feel free to follow along on there. If not, the best place, and I highly suggest that you do, it's good stuff. Bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's the best place to stay up to date on everything. Find the latest podcasts and live streams. You'll find the announcement page, the free book to download, and all the other jazz and snazzy bits and all that stuff is on the website. So make sure you guys bookmark the website so you're always up to date. And last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel, what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and Give, Send, Go. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. Again, this is one of those things. We don't do paywall subscriptions. We don't do memberships. We don't do super chats or monetization ads or any of that type of stuff. It's entirely free, and it's the only reason why it's free is because you guys support it and you guys donate for it and everything. So if the Lord is leading you to do so, please do so. And for those who do donate and pray and encourage and everything, thank you guys for doing so. You guys make this happen. I appreciate you all. So thank you. Tomorrow is Sunday. Get your wretched heathenic misfit booties to church, whether online, in person, doesn't matter, as long as it's a Bible believing, Christ following church. So make sure that you guys get there or be square. And that's going to be it. So thanks for joining and all that stuff. So, hold on one second. We're going to go ahead and, do that. All right. Get to church tomorrow. See you guys next time. Peace out and Maranatha. Where's the button? Where's the button, man?
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.